Hey all, Eskie here, bringing you some more Deadlock gameplay. So short intro about me, if you don't know who I am, I'm a high MMR player. I've been playing since May. Usually what we do in these videos is we'll go over one of my replays, analyzing a high MMR lobby, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. But actually today we're going to be looking at MikaelS. If you guys have been following some of the Deadlock trackers, he's probably the best, if not one of the best paradoxes in the game right now. So we're going to watch his gameplay, look what he's doing, trying to analyze, see what we can learn something. Excuse me. So one of the big things I want to emphasize about Paradox is a pretty squishy character and very combo oriented. Has really great lane harass, which you'll see a lot of. If you notice, he took Kinetic Carbine first, and Kinetic Carbine is just such a great harassment tool in lane. Basically, what you'll do, especially early on, and I think you'll see it with his build, is you basically build weapon damage, and your weapon damage scales your Kinetic Carbine, and you're just going to be doing a ton of lane harass in game. And another thing to mention is that, especially early on, so he just got Pulse Grenade. So one of the things you'll see a lot of high MMR Paradox players doing is they will pop they'll hit their 3, so they'll have Kinetic Carbine up. And usually, of course, if you're a good player, you're going to hide behind cover at that point. But what a really, really good Paradox player will do is they will throw their grenade to get you out of that cover while their Kinetic Carbine is active so that they can hit you with that Kinetic Carbine. Another thing to note about Paradox and why I think you'll see a lot of Paradoxes building almost exclusively weapon damage items first is the cooldowns on the abilities are very, very long in the early game. So this is a 28-second cooldown. This is a 26-second cooldown. And if you notice, he took Headshot Booster first, which is pretty standard lane harassment tool. You know, you get bonus damage when you hit a headshot. And you're going to be you're going to be trying to hit headshots with your Kinetic Carbine, so it pairs really well. But because you have these long cooldowns in lane, building that weapon damage is going to give you the best harass because that is where the overwhelming majority of your damage is coming from early lane. So I think you just saw him do that combo there where he actually threw the grenade into the cover because the 7 was behind the cover there so that the 7 would move out of the cover so he could hit his Kinetic Carbine on the 7. Another thing I think you're seeing him do, and probably one of the most impressive things about him, is the spacing he has with Paradox. So like I mentioned, Paradox is a very squishy character, very backline oriented. You don't want to get too close. And if you kind of think about, you know, their lane versus this lane, you want to stay behind the Abrams, your ally, and you want to avoid getting knocked up by Dynamo, because if you get knocked up by Dynamo, it's a very high chance you're going to die at that point. So making sure you keep that spacing so that you can just harass with your carbine, harass with your grenade, get that poke in while you're still last hitting is a hugely important part of Paradox's game, and kind of letting your Abrams go in there and try to get in there while you're standing behind the Abrams. So the second item he got here, he actually went all the way up to a 1250 item. And it's Mystic Shot. And it makes a lot of sense if you think about it. But Mystic Shot is such a great early harassment tool. You just get flat spirit damage. You get spirit power and weapon damage. And if you saw, he's been harassing this 7 pretty hard. And I think he's basically harassed the 7 out of lane because they put so much pressure on him. So yeah, so the 7 actually had to leave. Oh, wow. So the 7 was actually coming off the zip there because he had gotten harassed so hard out of lane there. But I guess Pocket had actually roamed over. I didn't even see that. And I guess they didn't either because they were still standing out in lane. So one thing to keep in mind, especially during the laning phase, is against better players, you're going to see people rotate onto you if you're consistently pushing your lane. So if you notice throughout that entire first part of the laning phase there, they were constantly pushed into the enemy turret, and that's going to invite someone from another lane, and this time it was yellow lane, come over to their orange lane and get a gank off on them. So 2 more items. So we have extra health and basic magazine. Basic magazine, weapon damage, ammo, pretty classic on a build where you're going pretty much weapon damage. And then extra health. So Paradox is a squishy character. That bonus health makes you more tanky, allows you to survive more. And then it actually also gives you weapon damage as well, which is what you want in the early game. You want that weapon damage. And then let's take a look at the skill build here too. So the first point that he used was in Kinetic Carbine, and I'm pretty sure the second point he used was in Kinetic Carbine as well. Oh, wow, that was a great parry. So I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but so he swapped the dynamo into, and he went into the turret, and then right as he got to the turret, he parried there. And one of the things you'll see a lot of high-level players doing, and if you didn't know, if you're up close to a turret, the turret will actually try to melee you, and you can actually parry that melee. So that was actually a really clutch parry there, because I think he would have died had he not parried that turret shot. I think he left that fight with about 200 health. So really, really great swap on the dynamo, really great parry on that turret to keep himself alive. So back to the skill build here real quick. So 2 points in Kinetic Carbine and 1 point in Paradoxical Swap, which is the ultimate. So that cast range bonus is huge there. That is what allowed him to hit that dynamo and swap into the turret. And that's basically how Paradox plays right there and why Paradox is so strong. So I think one of the things you could also see on the trackers is Paradox has actually a pretty low win rate. But if you follow some of the high MMR stuff, if you follow some of the better players, they actually have very high opinion of Paradox. And Paradox is actually really strong in high MMR lobbies. And the reason for that is because of the ultimate. So one of the reasons that you're going to be swapping so much is if you have a coordinated team behind you, or at least a fairly coordinated team who knows your character, what you're doing, and what to expect, then you swapping an enemy into your team, especially if they go through wall and take that damage and they're slowed, that's almost a guaranteed kill. So that's one of the big reasons why Paradox is such a strong character in high MMR, is that when you hit that swap, if your team is around, it's almost a guaranteed kill at that point. And so what you'll see Mikael do is it's basically a Kinetic Carbine build and an ultimate build. So the fourth rank up we've gotten here is the second tier of the ultimate, giving you that extra swap damage. So basically the play style is you put your wall down, you hit your Kinetic Carbine, and then you swap. And the Kinetic Carbine itself, because it slows, allows you to hit your swap a lot easier. And going through the wall is actually a big chunk of damage. If you look at the damage here, it's at 10% max health damage. So that whole combination, you're already taking that character down to a pretty low health. And then on top of that, your team is right there to kill them. Another core item that you're going to see him buy, and I think pretty much any Paradox player that knows what they're doing is going to buy, is Warp Stone. So the final piece of that combo is going to be you're swapping them, and then you're immediately hitting your Warp Stone to get back towards your team. And the reason that Warp Stone is so strong is it actually gives you bullet resist when you activate it. So you're actually going to be fairly tanky at that point. So it's not going to be that easy to kill you. And while you would think that swapping a character from their team into your team and you into their team might actually be a risky play, it ends up being a pretty easy win for your team, especially depending on the character you get. Let's talk about a few more of the items here real quick. Mystic Burst. I mean, that just pairs really well with Kinetic Carbine, because I'm pretty sure Kinetic Carbine is spirit damage as well. So there's one of those big swaps through the wall, and the dynamo dies right there.
Let me show y'all Warden's over there.
So like I said, just pretty much a guaranteed kill at that point. If you can get a full combo swap off on someone and your team knows what they're doing and they're expecting you to do that, just a super easy kill. And that is why Paradox is so strong. And there you go. He just picked up Warp Stone as his first tier 3 item. Some of the other items that he bought, Sprint Boots, I think that's pretty typical on almost any hero. Having that extra sprint speed to get around the map is just so good. Also gives you weapon damage, which is something you want on Paradox. Extra regen, extra ammo, which is good, so your clip is bigger, and just a little bit tankiness and regen. And then, of course, Warp Stone. Like I said, when you activate the teleport, that's 30% bullet resist, which is huge because, of course, the enemy team is going to be shooting you when you swap into them. So immediately warping out and having that bullet resist is going to allow you to be tanky enough to live while the enemy team, or while your team kills the enemy player that you swapped. So another important thing I wanted to mention about Paradox is you're a backline character, and while it might not be intuitive that you're going to be swapping into the enemy, you're still a backline character, right? So in contrast to, let's say, an Abrams or a Dynamo, you're going to be wanting to stand behind your teammates so that when you get that swap, which I don't know if you've seen some of the swaps right now, but they're pretty long range. Once you hit that swap, the enemy player is going to actually be in the middle of your team. You don't want them to be too far in front of your team because you want your team to be able to turn on them and kill them immediately so that you're immediately at an advantage in that fight. I'm actually surprised here that he got high velocity mag so late in the game. I would kind of have expected him to buy it sooner. I think in pretty much any weapon damage build right now, you're going to see high velocity mag. And for those of you who don't know, I'm pretty sure every character except Bebop, I believe, Bebop's laser, is a projectile in this game. So one of the things, and he just bought Headhunter, which, you know, obviously is a great upgrade from high velocity mags. But high velocity mag in the laning phase is such a big advantage. And I think they've actually nerfed it since it's released, because it makes it so much easier for you to deny and last hit because your bullets are going faster now than the enemies. So I'm actually surprised he didn't buy that in the laning phase. I'm actually not sure why he wouldn't do that. So interesting thing there, but of course he did buy Headhunter. You know, you're, like I said, you're a backline character. You're long range. Having that extra bullet velocity is going to make it easier to hit targets. And then you're getting the weapon damage. And I think especially the headshot damage plus the healing is great on Paradox because you don't really have a lot of ways to sustain. Paradox doesn't have any lifesteal built into her kit. You're probably not going to buy something like a bullet lifesteal or anything like that. So Headhunter just fits really perfectly there, giving you a little bit of extra sustain. A little aggressive there, but he was able to get out. I don't think many of his teammates were around there, but you know, one of the ways that he plays Paradox is very aggressive, and obviously it works for him. And yeah, once you get to kind of a certain point as Paradox, your kinetic carbine just starts hitting like a truck. So the first 5-pointer he got was actually in his ultimate. The cooldown is actually such a huge deal on the ultimate. As you can see, the ultimate's now 25-second cooldown, which is pretty insane. Oh wow! Oh, I think the lash hit the the lash hit the Wraith off the zip line, and he came over and capitalized on that. So 25 seconds as an ultimate cooldown is pretty insane. If you really think about it, I would guess that most team fights probably last around 30 seconds. And so that's really 2 ultimates per fight. And you just saw him execute the combo there. Easy kill on that 7. So I would imagine that's why he gets a tier 5 upgrade in his ultimate first. And I imagine he's about to get the tier 5 in the carbine as well. So yeah, he got the tier 5 in the carbine as well. So that's basically this build, right? I think you can kind of see. Oh wow, look at that swap. That was insane. Is he gonna get the Wraith though? Ooh, Wraith missed the blink. He had to reload though. That is, man, that's unfortunate. And he died. I think he was actually mispositioned there. If you look at the team right now, it was just him and Lash up here against basically their whole team, excluding Wraith. But Wraith was there as well, so I think that was actually a bit of a misposition on his part, maybe too aggressive. You know, obviously, if you watch a lot of his gameplay, very aggressive Paradox style, but I think the aggression kind of got him in trouble there. He really wanted that Wraith kill, obviously, because Wraith was very low. And if he didn't have to reload there, he would have gotten it. But if you looked at the minimap at that point, his team was very far off of him, so they weren't playing together. And that's kind of the issue with Paradox, is that if you're not with your team, if you're not playing together, you're pretty squishy and you're probably going to die. Interesting swap there. Oh, got Dynamo ulted there as well. Is he going to die? Wow, that's so much damage. So I don't know if you guys saw that, but that's pretty much the power of Paradox right there, is the insane burst from your mid and late game kinetic carbine. You can just absolutely chunk characters with your kinetic carbine just by itself. And so what'll happen is your kinetic carbine will hit like a truck, and then you'll swap them into your team, and they're pretty much dead at that point. So let's see what he upgraded next. He's upgrading his Vol. I imagine he'd go for the tier 2 here as well, just so that you have more versatility. The Wall is actually going to be your longest cooldown, and it's actually longer cooldown than your ultimate after you get the tier 5 of the ultimate. So having that extra charge, you're going to be able to use it more in a more versatile way than just placing it down so that you can ult someone through it. So he just got Glass Cannon. I think this is pretty typical for his build. And, ooh, good swap there. Actually, none of his team is around him, though. Oh, wow. Yeah, they're just now arriving, and 2 of them were in orange lane. He's probably not happy. I imagine he wasn't happy about that, which is why he was doing that. But if you looked at his positioning based on his teams when he did that swap, is his team was actually basically in the midpoint of the map, and he was all the way up here at the Walker. So once again, he plays very aggressive, but I think sometimes that gets him in trouble because his team wasn't there to capitalize on that swap. The enemy team was there, though, and he died because of that. So Glass Cannon, we didn't talk about improved cooldown, but I think improved cooldown is, I don't want to say self-apparent, but pretty good. You're very reliant on your abilities as Paradox, Kinetic Carbine, your swap. So having that reduced cooldown going to be really nice. You're going to be hitting more abilities more often. And then Glass Cannon, I think you'll see him build this generally if he's ahead. I don't know that he always builds it, though. But, you know, there's basically no other there's no other item in the game that's going to give you more weapon damage than this. And he builds, and most people build Paradox as a weapon damage type of character. So this is just hugely spiking his damage. And I imagine once he hits some of these carbines, you're going to see him absolutely chunk people because of Glass Cannon. Oh, yeah. So I don't know if you saw that pocket, but the pocket had bullet shield as well. He still lost almost half his health to one carbine. Just some insane damage. And I think the pocket had about half of his health there, maybe a little less, and he just one-shot it with the carbine. So just some really, really insane damage. So he did get the tier 2 of his wall to give you that extra charge, just kind of make it more versatile. You don't always have to save it for your swap. You can put it down, kind of zone the enemy team because they can't shoot through it. That way you have that extra charge to have that versatility. And then he actually hasn't gotten anything in his pulse grenade. So I think because he has 2 points, that would indicate he's probably going to go for the tier 5 in his wall too. Oh, we got to pause. Here, let's skip through this pause. There we go. So because he has 2 points, I would expect him to get the tier 5 in this as well. And that just makes your swap even more potent because when you swap someone through your wall, they're going to get silenced. So not only are they slowed, they're silenced as well. It's just, they're even more guaranteed to be dead at that point. So kind of what you've been seeing him do mid-game and definitely is going to happen late game here as well is he's just roaming the map looking for picks. Kind of like this. So he found the pocket there, hit the carbine and the swap, and the pocket's just dead. So now his team is just immediately at an advantage here. That gives them map control. That gives them the ability to push. So that's his playstyle as Paradox, and the playstyle I see very successful Paradox is doing is mid-game, late game, you're roaming the map looking for that swap kill. Yep, hit another swap on that Dynamo there. Dynamo's pretty much dead. So that is a huge team fight win for them. I imagine they're going to do mid-boss off this.
Let's go mid.
I think this is probably one of the things that I see that kind of separates higher MMR games from lower MMR games is if you win a team fight in the mid or late game and you can't push into base and get at least, I would say, 1 to 2 shrines, then you want to do mid-boss. That's kind of my decision-making that I've kind of seen people do, what I've done myself. So basically, if you can't get at least a shrine, maybe 2 shrines, you just want to do mid-boss because mid-boss just makes it way easier to push into the base. And so while you could risk it and you could... Is this 7 just going to die immediately? Nope. He's, see, very aggressive there. His team wasn't there to capitalize on that. Damn, that's a lot of damage. His team wasn't there to capitalize on that swap. They did come now, and they're able to get these kills. But the more that you play with your team as Paradox, the better off you're going to be because your team will be able to follow up on your swaps. Damn. So talk about a few more items here. So he got Improved Burst. Improved Burst is going to help your Kinetic Carbine do even more damage. And then Fortitude as well. Fortitude makes you more tanky and obviously gives you a ton of weapon damage. You're a backline character, so you're very likely to be above 75% health. They actually might just win here. So yeah, like I said, always looking for that swap. Waiting to hit your Kinetic Carbine. Okay, so yeah. So I kind of missed that, but I imagine he went... is that a big 7 ult? Oh, wow. Yeah, pretty big 7 ult there. I think he's going to die. Surely he's dead. Oh my god. And the pocket teabagged him. So I think this kind of illustrates why mid-boss is such a requirement to push into the base. So they were able to push into the base. They got almost all of the Guardians. They got all the Shrines. And I think it's just the Patron left at this point. Yeah, it's just the Patron left. So because they had mid-boss there, they're able to take that risk and push into the enemy base. And they were able to get almost the entire base. They were able to get the entire base except the Patron at that point. So that's why it's so much more important for you to go and do mid-boss first before you push into the base. And damn, he just absolutely destroyed that pocket. His damage is insane. So let's look at the final 2 items he got. Bullet Resist Shredder. You know, you're just reducing the bullet resist. You're doing majority weapon damage, so that's nice for your damage. Pristine Emblem. I think this is just a pretty overstated item in general. Like, it just has so many good stats on it. And this passive, I imagine, is really, really good for Paradox, considering you're probably hitting people with your carbine. But it looks like they're going to win off that. Thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate it, and I truly appreciate all the support I've been getting since I started this channel. I would love to hear your guys' suggestions for videos you'd like to see. Some of the videos that I'm thinking about doing, some live commentary as I play. If you liked this video format, let me know, and I will find more high MMR players that play or focus on specific heroes that you want and do a review of their replay as well. Any suggestions that you have, I'm happy to hear them. Make sure you do that YouTube algorithm stuff for me. Subscribe, like, comment, all of that. It really helps me out. Thank you guys again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.